Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of AP Government and Politics with Mr. Langella. So, last time we were here, guys, we finished up with Chapter 12, and we also started off in Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 13 is going to be the start of our final unit. Wow, congratulations, you're almost done with AP Government and Politics. That's a big stepping stone right there. Now, we're almost there. Now, this unit is going to cover political participation and talks about all different ways in which you can participate in your civics, in your civic duty of being a citizen. And one of the major ways in which we do that is we go out and vote. Now, we talked about different polls and how people go into different voting places and everything, but one of the first things we're going to talk about when it comes to political participation is money, right? You're handing off money to different, candidates that might be, favoring your side. Now, one of the biggest issues we start to see is how do we show support of our candidates and what is allowed and what is not allowed. Now, last time we were here, we talked about money itself and how the Citizens United case had created a lot of controversy. Now, we did mention what political action committees are, right? We mentioned that PACs, right? The PAC, are very major parts that have been kind of involved in our politics, and a lot of people don't even know about it. Now, let me just give you guys some context of what's going on, just to give you guys some understanding. So, in 1974, Federal Election Campaign Act, known as the FECA, had allowed corporations, unions, and trade associations to form political action committees, or also known as PACs, as a means of raising campaign funds. Now, the FECA had set restrictions on contributors and contributions, and had stimulated that basically PACs must raise money from employees and members and may not simply draw it from their treasuries. Now, corporations, unions, and trade associations are not only the only groups that form PACs. Many other interest groups do that as well, and they collect and distribute contributions to legislators and other people running for office to kind of go along with their side. Now, in more recent years, after that had occurred, after that change, there was a bipartisan campaign reform act known as the BCRA of 2002, or also known as the McCain-Feingold Act, which had further regulated campaign finance and PAC regulated to national political PAC regulated campaign finance and PAC donations that go along with national parties. Now, they had limited what they could do, right? As in they limited what money they could send on a certain level, as in they couldn't send money or even involve themselves in politics 60 days of a general election and 30 days of a primary. Now, in 2010, in comes the Citizens United versus the FEC. And that's the last thing we kind of talked about here. Now, let's talk about a little bit of the issues that were going on. Now, we mentioned a little bit of the background of kind of what PACs are, political action committees are, and I mentioned what super PACs are, but that doesn't really start off how the FEC and versus Citizens United had begun, okay? So just to give you guys some background, I talked to you guys a little bit already about some of the key facts already with the BCRA, the McCain-Feingold Act, and some things that PACs must abide by. Now, what's crazy is in 2008 is really where it started. Citizens United, which is a non-for-profit organization funded by partially by government corporations, not government corporations, but corporations, to basically produce a movie, which was Hillary the movie. And this movie was basically trying to get people to not vote for Hillary Clinton as the 2008 Democratic presidential nominee. Now, they wanted to make this movie to basically to be able to be subscribed on cable, and also you can download it through video on demand services so that people could watch it in advance before the election. Now, the FEC had said that basically this movie was clearly intended to influence voters, and therefore the BCRA had applied, which meant that this organization could not advertise this to within the last 30 days of a primary election. Now, they had basically shut down the advertisement of this movie. Now, when they first went through this movie, they went through this in the courts, the district courts, they had said that basically, since it's not technically an advertisement, it's a film, that there was already some kind of interesting ways. Like I said, it's not an advertisement. It's an entire movie, full length movie, to kind of get Hillary Clinton not voted in. It's kind of treading along some very thin lines to say what is allowed and what is not. But Unfortunately for Citizens United, the BCRA had applied and actually had stopped it. So, according to the BCRA, that corporations and organizations could not pay to air this sort of direct appeal to voters too close to an election. So that's what they use as their argument as to stop it. Now, according to a special provision within the BCRA, it allowed Citizens United to appeal the decision and bring it directly to the Supreme Court, and that's what happened. So they had went directly to the Supreme Court, and now it's in the hands of Justice Kennedy. Okay, so now the big issue here. Does a law that limits the ability of corporations and labor unions to spend their own money to advocate the election or defeat of a candidate violate the First Amendment's guarantee of the freedom of speech? Now, that's really the question here, right? Remember, because it's a full-fledged movie and not just an advertisement, it's at borderline. Is it really just this group's freedom of speech to try to get Hillary Clinton not elected as the primary nominee in 2008? Okay, so that's really the problem here. Are they regulating free speech? Or are they, because like I said before, political participation, one of the aspects is, either creating, a somewhat of a movie or even donations or any of these other things. And in this case, it technically wasn't even money donation. It was almost like they created a movie in ways in which they could make Hillary Clinton not the candidate. So the decision was that Justice Kennedy had wrote for the majority, and they had ruled in favor of Citizens United. Okay, now basically they had ruled in 2010. It overturned the BCRA's limits on the PAC fundraising for corporate independent expenditures. So under the terms of the Citizens United decision, PACs that donate to specific candidates must operate under limits on their contributors and their donations. But PACs that do not donate to specific candidates, as long as they do not coordinate with these specific candidates, are not limited in their fundraising. So in this context, political donations are considered free speech. So it's kind of a very loophole-ish way to look at it. As in, basically what they're saying is that corporations and unions are entitled to these First Amendment free speech rights, and as long as they are not in coordination with the campaign or the candidate, then they could be allowed to have a very close to the primary advertisements or movies. Now, what they also they've created these what they call unlimited PACs, and they are also known as super PACs. Okay, so super PACs basically can take unlimited donations to spend unlimited dollars on indirect ads, which is what I mentioned in the next slide here. Okay, so I kind of give you a comparison between the two. Now, it's kind of crazy. For regular PACs, donations from single candidate to PACs PACs can send in $2,500 maximum to a candidate. All right. Such PACs donations to national political committees cannot exceed $15,000. Multi-candidate PACs and others, like people that have multiple candidates in one PAC, can be maximum usually of $5,000. Okay. Now, super PACs avoid any limits by not directly or officially coordinating with specific candidates. So that's really the big difference here. And it's very vague of what the lines are drawn when it comes to super PACs versus regular. And that's why if you look up some different, I think it was Stephen Colbert had created his own super PAC a few years ago to show kind of how flawed the system is. Technically, he pretended like he was running for campaign. I think it was in 2012. I think I could be wrong. And he created his own super PAC, and technically, anyone could donate to him. And that it kind of just showed that there's no regulation when it comes to these super PACs. And now he uses the super PAC to kind of do a lot of his fundraisers for for different candidates, because that's what it's made for. So you can make an interest if you have an interest group, you can create a super PAC where basically massive corporations or elites can donate unlimited amounts of money, and then that super PAC can now create ads on behalf of candidates. Now, what's crazy happens is a lot of times you look at specific campaigns, they actually have people like family members or someone that they trust that is running the super PAC itself. So it's not the candidate, but it's someone that the candidate trusts completely that is running these super PACs to get the unlimited amount of money to kind of fund it into any way, shape, or form. Now, these super PACs are used by everybody. So it's not just Democrats, not just Republican, everybody uses them. So I gave you guys, I have a little video here I'll play for you guys to watch, so at least you guys can get a feeling of some things. Okay, yeah. So this is a little older of a video because we already know what happened. But yeah, no, it does it gives you a pretty good job of looking at the difference between PACs and super PACs. And as I was saying before, Stephen Colbert had created his own super PAC to kind of show how basically, yeah, we have regulations on we think we have regulations on very high interest groups like as in elitist groups, but they still have influence over our candidates. Okay, so forms of political participation go in many different ways, okay? Voting is not the only form, and we know this already because I just mentioned how we can donate. We can donate money. But linkage institutions is basically another way in which we can do that. Okay, so linkage institutions are basically channels that connect individuals with the government, including elections, political parties, interest groups, and the media. Because these are all things that are connected. As in, the way I always look at this is that these are all ways that connect us to all these major aspects of our political process. Okay, so that's what linkage institutions are kind of associated with. We could also have social movements themselves, so we can have kind of seeking to kind of change different political or social issues that are going on, having protests, political meetings, even having rallies, or even there's so many other things you can have that kind of go along with social movements. Okay. Okay, so some questions I want you guys to think about. So, why are some forms of political participation more popular than others? And then, which forms of political participation are more likely to have an impact on policy making? So, I want you guys to think about that because there are some things that will definitely have an impact, right? And this could vary because some people could think one way is better while others think that others. Now, I wanted to take a look at some of these, but I mean, my thing is we have the most. If you look here, we have the most participation in our campaigns than everyone else in the world. Okay, it's kind of obvious here. Now, I'll probably give you guys this as well. This FRQ kind of analyzes these different percentage numbers. Good. All right. So now the right to vote and exercising that right. All right. So this is kind of easy stuff here. So suffrage is the right to vote. If you did not know that. Now, 26th Amendment had basically created that allows those at 18 years and older could vote. Now, this is really important because it came along with the idea that if you're allowed to be, sent to war, that you should have the ability to vote as well. This is kind of obvious at this point. The 24th Amendment prohibits Congress and states from imposing poll taxes as a condition for voting in federal elections. This is a direct way of combating the Jim Crow laws in the South, and we talked about the different things that were involved during the Civil Rights Movement. Okay, so the biggest thing that shaped the electoral participation is voter turnout. Okay, and this changes every year. I think that when you look at why to vote and why not to vote, it has to do with what's going on. I think there has to be along the lines of, if there is a big, and we might have talked about this already, is there's so many more people that come out during presidential elections than that do not. So usually whenever it's a vote for president, that's where we see the most people come out to vote. Now, on top of that, we see big voter turnout whenever there is a hotbed issue happening within the United States. I think this coming election will probably be a very large voter turnout year, just like in 2016. 2016 was one of the biggest in the history of the United States, but in grand scheme, looking at how it used to be, there was a lot more people that did come out. And there's still a large population that didn't come out to vote in this last major presidential election. The reason why I say that I think it's going to be bigger is because it seems like the battle lines have been drawn. There are those that want to vote out President Trump and those that want to keep President Trump in. So now you start to see that there is a large group of people that are going to be there just to try to get him out, and there's a large group just going to keep him in, and then there's just that the rest of the world, rest of the country that's kind of just sitting there saying, I just want to vote for who's best for the ideals of what I believe in. All right, so we can even take a look at different demographics to show which groups do come out to vote, and we've talked about this before. When you look at age, right? Age is probably the biggest and easiest indicator of who comes out to vote. I think it's always the oldest that always come out to vote. The senior citizens definitely come out to vote. Even the boomers come out to vote. And it seems as though the millennials or even just the 18 to 29 do not come out to vote. All right, and it's because and even the age group after, which is usually the 30 to I think it's 30 to 40 years old, or sorry, 30 to kind of the 49, or usually they don't like to come out to vote either, because a lot of times those groups are working and they don't really come out on a Tuesday, the second Tuesday in November, to come out and vote. I think if they change the voting to be on a weekend, like a weekend event, yeah, you know what, you'll have a lot of people kind of be annoyed because they have to wait after the weekend to find out who won, but I guarantee you'll get a lot more people to come out to vote. So when you look at their socioeconomic status, that does have kind of it tells you that usually if they are higher level economic status, they'll come out to vote more. They usually participate more, so they'll end up joining interest groups, or they'll donate more to campaigns. And it's kind of easy to understand. If you have more money to spend, there's more likely there's a chance that you might donate that money. Most of the time, if you're really living paycheck to paycheck to survive, you're not going to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to donate some money to a candidate, because you're not worried about that candidate. You're worried about surviving the week. You're worried about paying off your bills. All right, and usually when I already mentioned, they have higher education, higher money. You're just going to spend that money on campaigns. Okay. Now, it also makes a big difference. Like I said, if there's a hotbed issue, a person's belief in what's going on at that time, they want to either have great political change or at least keep their candidate in. That does create basically a bigger participation amongst the entire voting group. But when there's nothing big, if you really look at the most recent voter turnouts in most recent years, you can definitely see that there is a drop off over time. I already mentioned this. Older Americans tend to vote more, and younger tend to not vote at all. or at least vote in a lower capacity. That's why I feel the burn. Bernie Sanders is not really doing so hot right now because they aren't really coming out to vote because his base is a lot younger people. Now, you look at when it comes to turnout rate, numbers have shown that Hispanic Americans usually come out a lot less than of other racial groups. Women actually have a higher turnout rate than men do. I think it's also depending on who is running, but usually those are the numbers are pretty consistent. So, yeah, I think when you look at specific major events, I think the fact that when Barack Obama was first running, he was the first black president to ever be elected. You definitely saw a major turnout in the African American vote because they saw what the situation was. They saw the candidates and they said, I want to vote this man in. And not just saying because he was African American and that's why they voted for him, but there were definitely some that did vote for him because he was African American and they wanted to see history being made. And I can guarantee you, and that's why you saw a big turnout in 2016 as well, because you saw a lot of people vote for Hillary Clinton for the same reason for having the first woman president. I think if you see a VP that's a woman, I will bank that you will see that happening. And I think this election you'll have a lot of people anyway, but I think you'll see that as well. Okay, so now when you look at the difference between, I think when it comes to, they have all these different numbers when it comes to age, gender, race, they all come out to vote, right? They have all these different numbers. But I think it has to do with the political mobilization of a party, right? When you look at who, the party situation at the moment, I think this year, the reason why I keep saying it's going to be a big turnout year is because it's a big moment for both parties altogether. I think when you have the impeachment, you have the Mueller report, you have, just the division between a Republican and Democrat, and now this whole coronavirus, you haven't really seen a lot of unity going on. And it's only gotten bigger and bigger to the point where like I said before, the battle lines have been drawn, right? And now it's almost which party can mobilize their base enough to get a vote in. Now, when you look at voting requirements or registration requirements, I don't want to say voting requirements because that's just breaking the law. So registration requirements, we start to see that there has been a massive controversy when it comes to what you need to have, in order to vote, right? And you look at different states. Some states require more things for you to be registered to vote, while others do not, right? And the reason why that's controversial is because in some states they might require you to have multiple versions of ID in order for you to be registered for your name and everything. And some people might not have more than just one or two versions of ID, right? And that was really the big controversial issue. I remember, I think it was President Trump had said, everyone's got that shopping card, when you have the card that you go shopping with, and a lot of people were kind of like looking around like, what is he talking about? Like he hasn't gone shopping for himself. He doesn't know shopping cards. You have to have that, and that's the thing. It turns into now a controversial issue where you're wondering what is the limit for registration? And when you look at different, and I'll show you guys a map showing you how many states require this much registration, how much identification for you to be registered here, and some that require more. And I'll show you how many states are different. And the reason why it's controversial is because when you look at demographics, according to some demographics, it says that there are more white individuals that have more than one voter, more than one identification cards that can provide more than just one source with their name and their face. While you look at more minority groups, they have less. So it makes people say, is this more of a racial thing than it being just about we need more identification in general to make sure it's a safe election? And that's where it became controversial. Now, there are different ways you can vote. Absentee ballots are basically completed and submitted by a voter before the day of the election. without actually having to go to the polls. So this is where you can kind of submit it early if you want. So at least you know that you will not run out of time. You can always send those in. But unfortunately, most people don't even do this. I mean, there are more. It's actually crazy because there's more older people that actually do this, and they have the time and effort to go through that. Now you can easily do this. It's not difficult at all. I suggest that if you wanted to do this, get it out of the way. It's pretty easy, but you're gonna have to wait a little closer to the election to do this. But it actually is a pretty easy process to do. Also, mail-in ballots are pretty good, and it helps you not have to wait in line all day just in order to vote. And I think that's the best part about it. Okay, so here's the map I wanted to show you. So if you look at the gray says no in-person voter ID required to vote. Now, you see a lot of states, like New York State, you don't necessarily need to have one. What's interesting, though, is that when you actually look at that, they usually do make sure you have your driver's license on you, or at least something. So that may not necessarily be as updated as it should be. Because even like if I was voting for the the House elections in this previous election year, and I had given them my ID because me and my father share the same name, so I had given them my ID to make sure that they gave me the right identification, signature and everything, so at least I can go out and vote. Certain states have more than just one, so require person ID required in student is not accepted. Green is in-person voter ID requirement and student ID is accepted, so certain places you can do that. Yellow is in-person voter ID requirement, but alternatives such as affidavits, signature matching, registration, database comparison, and student ID are accepted. So there's a lot more here, right? So that's what's different. So there's a lot of separation between different ones. Now, the reason why people are more angry about when you have more regulations, as I said, they feel as if it's more based on race than actual having a safe election, and that's kind of a big problem. Now, certain states don't even allow online registration, but as you can see, there are more. 38 states of the 50 do have that. All right, so now let's look at these questions. Why is voter turnout lower in the United States than in any other democracies? And second one, what steps could the state and national governments take in order take an effort to increase voter turnout? I have you guys look at this FRQ and then complete it.